And welcome to Dating Dames V2. I'm Jackie, and this is my lovely co-host Michelle. Whether you're newly single, recently divorced, or simply waking up to the possibility of love once again, you're in the right place because at Dating Dames we believe it's not about him, it's about you. And today we are discussing a topic that is often whispered about, and we as women wish other women would speak and engage more on this. And it's the one we are rarely discuss honestly, openly, humorously. It's the topic of sex and the reclaiming your desire. Because here is the truth. Nobody tells you that desire doesn't disappear once you tear up that marriage certificate, or it doesn't disappear once you hit 50, and it doesn't disappear with stretch marks and heartache and whether or not you've waxed your legs. Welcome, Michelle. Welcome to this amazing topic, which I know you are looking forward to.
So excited. I've been waiting for this one. We've talked
I
about it a
know.
couple times.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really interesting point that you were just making about how desire doesn't disappear with your marriage license. And you know what popped into my head was, in fact, it might reappear with the end of your
I
marriage
think it does.
license.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's definitely what happened to me. I mean, I have to say, for the last couple years of my marriage, I just thought I wasn't interested anymore. I mean, after all, I had gone through, like many women have, perimenopause into menopause, and everyone says, yeah, 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 your libido declines at this point in your
Yeah.
life. Around
Yes.
about the same time, my husband wasn't really initiating or pushing for it. And so I
Mm,
just came to think it was sort of normal, right?
mm,
But if I'm honest now, looking back, what I realize is that my disinterest,
mm.
maybe the hormones had something to do with it, but I don't think, frankly, it was even the main reason. I think that a lot of things were going on. First of all, I had spent many years, as many people, many women do, as
Mm.
COO of my family. I
Yes,
was also a
absolutely.
VP of marketing, for a company. I had to manage to-do lists, kind of figure out what was a realistic, managing expectations and all these things. And frankly, your brain gets kind of overwhelmed with that,
Mm,
kind of the operations and the logistics. And I didn't feel sexy.
mm.
Also, I think the dynamics of a long-term relationship, especially the one that I was in, where we didn't talk about our sex life, you know,
Yeah, you
it
get that.
leads into this like laziness
Mm,
about sex.
mm, mm.
And and then finally, I think I have to bring up the fact that I've never seen until recently desire and pleasure, physical pleasure, as my right or as my source of power and energy in life.
Yes.
I
Mm.
think, society tells us it's a little bit slutty to like sex too much or be
Yeah,
alive to that physical
yes, yeah,
physicality, right? It,
absolutely. Society tells women that
yeah,
it's
it's a way. I
being.
mean, just one last point. We won't go too
Mm,
far into this, but I think for that, let's just say for thousands of years,
yes.
society and church and governments
Mm,
have controlled the conversation around women and
mm,
sex as
mm.
a way to, keep things the status quo and keep the power with the men, because
Yes.
men clearly have this biological, physiological need to release pressure, stress, semen, while women, it's optional. We don't really need
Yes.
it. And therefore, if you're out seeking it, clearly you are
Mhm.
not focused on the right things.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we move on, let's just touch
You can see
on,
how
you know,
excited I am.
right? This birthright for pleasure, this energy that gets derived from not only sex but intimacy. And then there was also something you mentioned which is really important, is that having the vocabulary to articulate it
Mm,
and
mm.
discussion. And I know one of your mantras is no topic off the table post divorce. And so, even I hear this quite often amongst friends at my age, is that we've just kind of settled into our routines. Or, yeah, I think it's just very normal for us to have sex.
Once a year.
Yeah, on my birthday, on
Exactly.
my anniversary, if I am lucky. And we start thinking that that's normal. And I had the same in my marriage. I had the very same. And I don't know about yourself, but as soon as I raised the topic of we're not having sex that often, is this normal? Yeah, I'm tired. I'm busy. I'm traveling. There was always an excuse. There was always, or what was perceived as a justifiable reason.
Mm,
And I think one of the key things that we should also mention is that sex, intimacy, these, though all under the same umbrella, it is also, you can enjoy them separately. You
mm,
can have your partner without it necessarily being sex all the time. So I guess what we're trying to do is really just here, post-divorce, when the slate is clean and you get to rewrite the story, we also get to clear the air right now. So we start asking ourselves this question, well, am I too old for desire? Am I too complicated for intimacy? Um, am I being selfish for wanting to feel sexy,
mm,
I've been wanting to be turned on. And I remember post-divorce, I had to remind myself, and it was something that both you and my therapist said to me, you need to reconnect with your desire. You need to reconnect with that feminine energy within
mm,
you. And I don't know if you also went through this transformation where you had to make this conscious effort to reconnect with that feminine, frivolous, sensual side of yourself. And I'm not even talking about the sexual side yet,
mm.
but sensual sides of yourselves that, you know, make you feel alive, that make you feel that, as you said, this pleasure is a birthright of mine.
Yeah.
And whether my body is too fat, too tall, too short, too this, too that, it's got nothing to do with those external attributes at all. And I think it was you that made the comment of how many men our age have perfect bodies. But for
I
them,
haven't
it's
seen that many so far.
acceptable. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's one of the other things that we both learned on this journey post-divorce is that wanting to feel desired, wanting to feel sexy once again, it if you don't, you do start restricting a whole range of,
Mm,
and you can see, I mean, we've spoken about this endlessly, but you can see when a woman is fulfilled sexually, sensually, when she's tapping into that energetic side of herself. You see it, and she glows, and she's so magnetic. And the magnetism is not just about other men being magnetized to her, it's people in general. They are drawn to her once again because a magnetic woman is one who is able to tune into herself, her energy, her power as it stands.
and she's, in that situation, you kind of, I mean, we all sort of joke about, you know, coming into the office the next day or seeing friends and people like, oh, I guess you had a good night.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but I mean, and that's a little bit of a joke, but at the same time, to your point, it's obvious in the way we, okay, maybe it's an extra glow in the cheeks, but maybe it's a sense of confidence
Yes.
and the energy has changed, an energy that says, the pleasure was mine. And now I can share that with other people. And people, as we've said, are drawn to positive energy.
Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
if you kind of flip it on the other side, someone who's sort of shut down, I mean, it doesn't have to be extreme, but it really limits your access to the power, to the energy, the pleasure, and the joy, right? I mean, because that's what gives you the energy, is because you're like, wow, this life is amazing. And then
Absolutely.
you're
Yeah.
so excited about it, you want to share it
Yes.
with people, right?
Absolutely. And you feel like you can surmount anything because you're tapping into a very special energy within yourself. Absolutely.
So let's for a minute kind of talk about guilt. Um, and I think the guilt can come from a few things. One we mentioned earlier was, a little bit of that societal guilt. Now,
Yes.
whether that's about your age or whether it's a sort of a socially created, oh, women shouldn't, blah, 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 dot, dot, dot.
Mhm.
Maybe it's guilt you feel because you did perform that incredible COO role for years, and
Yes.
now starting to think about yourself feels really unfamiliar. And this is
Mm,
something I can totally relate to, because even I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll get some Botox, or maybe I'll get my nails done, or maybe,
mm,
and there's a little kind of alarm in my head that's like, wait a minute, should you be spending that money on yourself? Oh, getting a
Yes.
massage, don't you think that's just a bit rich? Didn't you just have one a couple days ago? There's a lot of the self-talk. You might also feel guilt that your marriage ended, or what you didn't give to that
Yes.
marriage, or what you didn't get in
Mm,
that marriage. There's
mm,
shame around your bodies. Maybe you don't feel it. But
mm.
here's the thing. This is a new chapter.
Yes.
Putting it out there, looking at it, realizing that that guilt is so last chapter.
Mm.
Now you have the
Absolutely.
opportunity to re-engage, re-emerge, and this is I can't overstate it. This is such a critical piece. It's such a critical piece of who
Mm,
you're becoming and the joy that you will get through
mm.
dating, but just in your own life if you can reconnect to your sensual and potentially sexual pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the key things that we need to unlearn completely, the lie we need to unlearn, is that for women, pleasure is a reward that we must earn.
Oh,
Jeez. I remember thinking, I mean, just thinking about my marriage and thinking and talking to my ex-husband and saying things like, so why aren't we having sex? And is it because of this reason? Is it because is there something wrong with me? Is it
mm,
something is there something I can improve? No, there was absolutely nothing. I was the one that was always trying to initiate, and after a while, you initiate and you get rejected, and then you initiate and you get rejected again, and you repeat the same exercise, and nothing happens, and you start thinking, "Oh, must earn it. How can I earn it? Must earn it."
mm,
Afford for you to earn. It is your birthright, and reclaiming that birthright. And here's the interesting thing, which I didn't know, does not start with a partner. It absolutely starts with you. One of the exercises that I had to engage in, which felt a bit odd at first, I have to admit, was that my therapist said, you need to reawaken your sensual side, your sexual side, and you can do that. And I'll just share two little
mm,
examples, was that, play music every day and just dance and let your body be free and move around.
mm, mm,
And the other thing she would say to me is, touch yourself, touch your hand, and not the way you moisturize yourself in the mornings or the evenings, but really touch and feel and allow yourself to explore what a good
mm,
part feels like once again. Because I had not experienced that in such a long time. We talk about things like vibrators as an example, right? And the first time I went into a sex store, oh my God, I remember feeling so humiliated and shy and, oh, this is not for me. This is like a real slutty thing to do, and I shouldn't be
that
doing
word
it.
again. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I remember the manager of the store came and she came to talk to me and she said to me, "Oh, what are you looking for?" And I said, "Honestly, I don't even know." And I think I had you on the other side of the line as well, saying, "Hey, I need help over here. You need to participate in the shopping experience with me." But something she said then, which really hit me, and I didn't understand in its fullness then, was that she said, "This is not about trying to create some sexual desire for another man. This is about you and
Mhm,
your sexual energy." And and then she said, "Pleasure, pleasure begins with you. It doesn't begin an external party." And at first, it was a bit bizarre for me to understand. And then when I started talking to other women, whether it be family members, whether it be close friends of mine, everybody would say, "Oh yeah, you don't have one? What?" As if I felt like I'd been living under a rock for such a long period of time. And finally that rock had been lifted off my head and my body and my mind, and and I realized that I can showcase other parts of myself to myself for myself.
mm, mm,
Really, really important to me. And it leans into what we'll be sharing, or you'll be sharing next with us, about reconnecting with your body.
yeah. Well, so there are a couple things. Your point that you were just making about how you were initiating and initiating, and you kept getting rejected and rejected, and it
Yes.
just popped into my head,
Mm.
going back to, social constructs and the
Yeah.
patriarchy. But I mean, that's like grounds for divorce. If a woman rejected the sexual demands of her husband, But
Hmm.
here in reverse, you are trying to initiate, I mean, let's just put it as do your wifely duties. You're not even, talk about what your needs are. And he's saying no. And
Mm.
and then you somehow are left to believe that it's something about you. And I
Yes.
just find that so incredibly frustrating. And it wasn't my situation. I think we both just sort of like went down into an abyss, and it
Yes.
wasn't that either one of us was initiating. But anyway, that kind of that right to sex in a marital situation is
Mm.
often seen as the guy's right and not the woman's.
Yes, and not the woman's right. Yes.
Anyway, so then, kind of to your point about the vibrator, and I don't know if we were going to talk about this later, but for me as well, it was a new concept. It was a new idea, but it was within, I swear to God, probably a week of my husband asking for the separation.
Mm.
And I, in my infinite wisdom, decided that the reason he was asking was because we hadn't been having sex. And
Wow.
and I thought, well, I guess it's my fault because I just didn't feel like it because, the hormones. And
Mm.
so I was actually had to do a quick trip. I had to get on a plane and whatever. And on my way, I was like, so what I need to solve this problem is a vibrator. So I
Mm.
remember sitting in the hotel room. There are no sex shops in Thailand.
Mm.
And so I'm in the hotel room, but you can get a massager
Mm.
online. And I had one delivered to me within about a week of that. But it began on a serious note, it also began my journey to understanding what I needed at a much deeper level and to start to honor that and really understand it.
Yes.
Um, so let me kind of go off vibrators. Or what were you going to say?
Yeah. May I ask, do you have a better understanding of this sensual sexual side of your body now?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I won't say that, I'm no Samantha Jones from Sex and the City,
No.
but but rewatching that series has taught me a
Yeah.
lot that they were way ahead of the game on. But I've learned a lot about that, and even
Mm.
in my experiences with actual men, in
Yep.
the last few years, I've learned a heck of a lot.
Mm.
Um, and I think I mean, we can go into that a little bit more later, but I think it's
Mm.
really reframed for me what I took as natural and normal. I mean,
Mm.
let me just put this out there. One
Go for
thing,
it. Mm. Go for it.
TMI warning for anyone who's worried. I'm not really embarrassed about this, but I'm kind of like, why did I? The thing is, I
I know.
thought I could
Mm.
only have one orgasm
Mm.
in one episode of sex.
Mm.
That is what I believed. And so my husband and I would always work to, kind of coordinate, get me warmed up, then get him warmed up, and then voila, it would all happen in one fell swoop.
Yep.
And then we were done.
Yes.
And what I discovered is that that's not actually what my capacity is. I have a
Mm.
capacity, which I
Mm.
did not learn in my marital life, to have
Mm.
multiple orgasms. I think
Mm.
I might have had four, in one episode at one time. And I'm probably not anywhere close to you, honey. So, but anyway, so that's something that I learned that was completely different to my expectation. The other thing I want to do, my public service announcement for hormones,
Go for it.
and for all women who, again, go back to believing it's normal to have low libido, it's normal to fall into this pattern of no sex with your partner.
Mm.
And that can happen for a number of reasons. But if one of the reasons is that you think you've gone through menopause and your estrogen, progesterone, and probably your testosterone has dropped off a cliff,
Yes.
it will have a huge impact on your interest, testosterone, and on your comfort, estrogen, progesterone. And
Mhm.
you don't need to live like this. And
Mm.
I'm a little I've become quite aware of this recently that
Mm.
there's a lack of discussion, and it's only really starting now around hormone
Yes.
therapy.
Yes.
If any of those things are true for you, for our listeners, they should get
Hmm.
to a gynecologist or a urologist. I discovered they can also prescribe, um, and talk to them about your symptoms, talk to them about how you're feeling.
Mm.
And
Mm.
if your doctor is dismissive or tries to tell you that that's not necessary or it's dangerous, please, please, please find a different doctor because, in
Yes.
fact, not only will it help your sex life, it will help for
Mm.
osteoporosis, it will help for your cardiac health, it will help for your cognitive decline, because we all have that.
Mm.
All of these
Yes.
things are related, and it
Mm,
will be an amazing improvement, likely. Again, each person different, all our hormones are
mm.
different, but please
Yes. Yes.
run, don't
Yeah.
walk to your nearest
Yeah.
hormone center.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, for me, the one of the big lies that I needed to unlearn, particularly, and I know I've mentioned this just recently, but for me, it was getting too old. We're getting too
It's because
old.
your husband kept saying it over and over, and you guys are like 10 years
Yes,
younger than I am.
exactly. But we are getting too old.
Too
And it was
old.
a real story. And it's like walking through a field of grass the first time you walk and there's no path, and then you redo it, and suddenly you redo it repeatedly, and suddenly pathways get created. And so the same in our minds, we start re-believing those stories.
Mm, mm.
And then slowly that parts of us shut down.
Yes. Yes.
Please continue.
No, that's no,
Mm,
that was exactly my feeling. And so I
mm,
think, for us, it's again, for all the reasons we've said, whether it's guilt, whether it's habit, whether it's social pressure, whatever it is,
mm,
we are taught that we shouldn't want this, that there's no biological need for us
mm.
to have this pleasure. In fact, okay, so fun fact, you probably know
Yep.
this one, about the
Mhm.
8,000 nerve endings.
Yes.
Do you know where they are? In,
Yes.
in our little pleasure center, women have
Yeah.
8,000 nerve endings in that
Yes.
little unnecessary pleasure center called the
Hmm.
clitoris or the
Yes.
clitoris, depending how
Absolutely.
you like to
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah.
Whereas many, many more than the penis has.
Yes.
And so you really do have to kind of question, wait a minute, why are those there
Mm,
again?
mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what are we doing about it? And what are we doing about it more specifically?
Yeah, yeah.
And that,
So, maybe you can tell us a little more about, kind of what your experience has been after, since the bad old years of of marriage.
well, I'm smiling a lot more nowadays. And I think for me, it's, sex post-divorce. It's been a journey. It's I think you and I may have discussed this. It's when was the last time somebody touched you, gently caressed you,
Mm,
and it made the hair
mm.
rise? You have shivers down
Oh,
your spine like you did when
mm,
you were young. Or when was the last time somebody kissed you and you were so swept away by that moment? You
yes.
felt like a teenager again. And that's all part of you awakening this desire within yourself, not just allowing yourself to fantasize about it,
Mm,
because to feel scared. And I mean, I've said this already, but I asked myself the question, who would want to be with me? I'm a single parent, two teenage kids. Who would want to be with me?
no one.
I know, because I'm an old bag. And then you start reawakening this desire, these energy centers within you, those 8,000 neurons that you were speaking about, and nerve endings that you speak about. And you start wondering, will I remember how to do it? Will I remember how to kiss again? As simple as kiss again.
Ooh,
Will you be able to respond? And will I enjoy it? Will I enjoy it? Especially for women who are post-divorce, and especially in my case, where it was at the request of your partner.
mm,
You were told the same lies repeatedly, and you start wondering, will I actually be able to enjoy this again? Will I be able to enjoy sex after divorce with somebody else? I'd been with the same partner for such a long period of time.
yeah, yeah.
I've forgotten how it all works. And some of your sexual experiences will be great, and some will not be that good, and some will you just want to forget about and never speak of.
I have a few.
We've both you've had a few. We've both had that, and we have to. It's really important to remember and embrace that feeling of
Mm,
being more of yourself. And I think for me at this point, for me at this point, I now know that if sex and intimacy and communication about it is not a part of the conversation with a partner, then it's an easy no for me,
yeah.
because I now realize that I am not too old, and I'm not too tired or too fat or too this or too that. I'm none of those two
Mm,
things.
mm,
I deserve it. I will have it, and
It's
I will.
important. It's important,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. You
And
know,
maybe
mm,
that's something that I also, again, in my COO role or my VP of marketing role,
mm,
I also, I mean, I'll confess that in my mind, this was not the critical part of the marriage. The critical part was that we
mm,
would be partners, we would raise these children, we would manage our
yeah,
finances, we would get through life, blah, 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 blah. And if
yeah,
we had a little sex along the way, great.
great. Mm,
But it wasn't, I think, kind of maybe the realization, maybe you always knew this, but I think the realization for me was that
mm,
that that is such a vital part of the connection
yes,
that allows you to do everything else, really, and allows you to
mm,
get through all that other stuff. Because
mm,
that other stuff, a lot of it is really not fun and really not
yeah,
pleasurable. And so if you don't
no,
have the balance,
yes,
then everything is becoming a chore.
yes,
And that kind of connection, and we've talked about this before, like, women,
mm,
we tend to have connection prior to sex. We want to feel connected. We want to
mm,
have that sense that we are cared for before
yes,
we can feel excited about the sex. And oftentimes,
mm,
excuse me, for men, it's almost the reverse. I think that they find connection through sex. And
correct.
and so we can be at complete odds, because if you're not feeling it because he's been a jerk all
Mm,
day
mm,
and you don't want to have sex, and then he doesn't feel the connection, and you both just go off your various ways, and
yeah, you do
it's
your own thing.
critical. Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember what it felt like the first time you were touched again?
Touched.
Mm.
Well, I do remember one of my early dates, and
Mm,
he was a guy who was visiting in
yes.
Thailand,
Mm,
and I had lunch with him, and we had a great lunch. But he was
mm,
here for some tournament or another, and
mm,
quite busy. And I was like, okay, so probably just have the lunch because he's got to go do his thing. And I was like,
yes.
oh, it's pretty interesting. And I remember talking to a couple of my girlfriends, and they're like,
Mm.
Michelle, you just
Tell
need,
us.
as they put it, some hot sex. And I was
Yes.
like, oh my goodness, because this would be the
As
first
Bridget
time.
Jones would say, a good shag.
Yes, exactly. And so I was like, oh, but what if da da da, all this stuff
Mm,
was in my head. Anyway, I'll cut the long story short into the
mm,
fact that we ended up having dinner, and I was on the verge of just saying no, because I felt nervous, right? I
of
didn't know what I
course.
was doing. And
Yeah.
he was this perfect gentleman. And he
Mm,
said, you don't have to go home right now if you don't want to. And it was just him being a gentleman, giving me the option, and for me to,
mm.
in that moment, be vulnerable enough to say, well, it's been a while. And
Yes.
he said, how long? I had to confess that at least, I said a year, it might have been longer. Um, but then it was fun. I did remember the kissing, and for me, kissing is actually really important and has become a little bit of
Yes.
a tell.
Mm,
If the guy's a bad kisser, I'm kind of like, I don't think so.
mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
but so that, it was, I mean, it was kind of the perfect initiation, and that he was off and leaving again. So it was basically a one night stand, but
Yes.
came at a moment and in a way that helped me regain my confidence, that
Mm,
I could remember how to do this, that I
yes.
would enjoy it.
Mm,
And despite my hormones, I managed to, get through with plenty of fun and plenty of energy.
yes. Yeah. And I guess you realized, because thinking about it and the actual realization is very different, that this part of you is not broken. It's not broken at all. It just needs to be welcomed back,
Just
like
like
the
hidden under layers and layers of stuff.
layers. Yeah, absolutely. And it's something you deserve. You
Yeah.
deserve a partner that honors your body, that is curious, that there is no judgments about who you are physically. I mean, you deserve somebody who listens to you, who waits,
Mm,
and who wants to please you. And like you
yes.
said, the other podcast episodes, you said men love direction. They find your voice, talk, speak to them, what you like, what you don't like.
Well,
Let
and
them have
this is, we've said this is one of the things about the vibrator. I mean,
yes,
if you, I mean, again, not to go into too much detail, everybody has to go their own path. But if you
yes.
just kind of use it in a very mechanical way and
Mm,
get to where you want to go and then you're done, okay, you're probably not
mm,
learning a whole lot. But if you can
mm,
experiment a bit, or you can experiment with touching yourself, I mean, sexually touching yourself um,
mm,
without a vibrator or,
yeah,
in the bathtub or whatever it is, you learn things and
mm,
then you can communicate them because every woman's body is different. And I think, I don't know if you felt this
yes,
way, but when I got
mm,
together with my husband,
mm,
I'd had sex with other men before, but
mm,
he seemed the more experienced, he had
mhm,
lived, he had dated, and he had done all these things. And so I
mm,
kind of took that he would know all these
mm,
things that I didn't
mm,
know, and therefore I could just follow his lead. But I mean,
yeah,
that's expecting a lot of guys because every
yeah,
woman is different, and they can't know every woman. So we're going to have to help figure it out. And
mm,
if we're not happy, not satisfied, or things aren't working out, somehow that has to become part of the conversation.
absolutely. And I think it's at that point that you realize that your own desire is so very important.
Mm,
And finding the words and the body language to communicate that, it's really important to you, you know. There were some key points you were going to take us through about what you deserve after having
yeah.
sex for so long with one partner.
Oh, like I said, I told you I was so excited about this episode because I
Mm,
think on many of these points we could go into even more detail.
mm,
But first of all, every woman deserves pleasure.
mm, mm,
For me, after 30 years with one person and having it delivered in basically one or two ways, I really didn't
mm,
know what was possible. So I didn't
mm.
even really know, like I said, multiple orgasms, sex in the morning.
Yes.
I don't know, those things
Hmm.
just never seem to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and as I just said, another thing to remember is that if you've
Mm,
been married that long, if you've been with a partner that long,
mm,
maybe you had sex, hopefully had sex before you got married, but
mm.
everyone was young. Nobody knew what was going on, and it was just our hormones that
Absolutely.
took over. And so
Absolutely.
now we have this chance to re-engage with people who are experienced, and we're more experienced, right? Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
you can figure out what is out there for you.
Yeah. One of the things you also said, which really resonated with me, was you get to set your own boundaries. Like
Mm,
dating in general, you get to set your own boundaries, what you like, what you don't, what you'll tolerate, what you won't, what you enjoy, what you don't. But prior, we never really had the voice to do that. I didn't even know you could do things like that. And it was
yeah.
so to finally embrace and embody all of these new learnings. Um, and most importantly, like you said, pleasure is our human right. It's what we deserve as women. And desire doesn't always mean sex.
Yeah, yeah, no. And I
It's
think I mean, that's a
sensuality.
point I think I've seen a few, different sort of sex therapists or whatever make for even for married couples, there's this, or people in long
Mm,
relationships, there's this tendency that, if people, they fall into these patterns. And so the minute he starts massaging your feet, that means he's gonna, want sex.
mm,
And so
mm,
there's trying to find this place where you can just have that touch, have that
mm,
closeness without an automatic obligation or feeling like you need to respond. I mean, I think that's
mm.
also a voice that we need to find,
Yeah.
having fun with it, as you were saying, to me, being able to kind of laugh at things, in while you're in bed and say, oops,
Yes.
or guess that didn't really work out as we anticipated. But I also like the point you said about boundaries. As I said,
Mm,
trying to find, maybe what you always did, maybe that works, but maybe a
yeah.
different partner will suggest something new,
Mm,
and hopefully it's not something scary or crossing some kind of taboo in your head. But still, you can
yes.
say, yes, I'll try it, or no, or let me think about it. And maybe next time we can discuss, right? I
Yes.
mean, so just like at
Absolutely.
dating, you have to figure out what's either a red flag or a no-go zone and what you
Mm,
might be willing to try with somebody
yeah.
new.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the key things that I always think about, and I know we tease about this, is that sex does not always, or desire does not always have to translate into sex. And you
Exactly.
massaging the feet, oh, that means he wants sex. No, it can be teasing and flirting and doing it for yourself, flirting with people, flirting with yourself, being frivolous, intimacy, deep conversations, being held. Those are also part of what matters in this umbrella of desire. And so
Mm.
Say some of the key takeaways that I'd really for us have been, desire does not fade. Oh my gosh, when I came to that realization, it's like a whole new world open for me. And the only person that needs to give you permission to release that desire is yourself. And your sensuality isn't a phase. It's not something that happens in your 20s and early 30s only. No, it's the long burn. It's an energy that belongs to you. And finally, you do not need to wait to be chosen. It is you that needs to
Mhm.
choose us, because when you do that, your entire outlook on life and sexuality as your birthright and pleasure as something that is not restricted to men only. It's yours and you can enjoy it. And I do hope that for our listeners, that something resonated and sparked within you and that
Mhm.
you can share it with your friends, with your family members, somebody that needs to hear this, especially amongst us women at this stage and age of our lives, and help us grow our community of dating dames.
And if you're craving that sisterhood, a few more incidents of TMI, or just a place to hear about hormones, come join us at Dating Dames V2 on the socials.
Absolutely. And remember to embrace this adventure, embrace this journey. And most importantly, it is not about him, this journey, it's about you.